Hey there! I feel like I look completely different in every single video, and that's because my hair just won't behave the same way twice. And it's cool sometimes, but sometimes it's annoying. Anyways, it doesn't matter after all, does it? I already kinda accepted that, so just saying. Hello everyone, this is Siren and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to give you some tips on how to read tarot when you are in a altered emotional state. And what do I mean by altered emotional state? Basically when you are not feeling quite yourself, when your emotional state isn't neutral, but you are either feeling angry or sad or frustrated or even anxious or fearful about something or some sort of situation, but you still want to grab a tarot deck and have a reading. Or maybe also if you haven't really thought about grabbing a deck in that moment, I'm gonna tell you how actually grabbing a deck and giving yourself a reading can benefit you. So with that being said, make yourself comfy, grab yourself something delicious to drink, and let's get into it. So, before I actually hop into it, I want to say, when I first started my practice, my tarot practice, I believe it was like 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years, I'm not sure. Time, right? I remember I have heard or read somewhere that you shouldn't be reading tarot when you are upset or when you are in this altered emotional state. Same goes for witchcraft regarding this opinion. Now you can probably tell by the expression on my face that I do not really agree. Now this is not just me blindly and recklessly going against some system, even though I love that. No, this is basically because, as I mentioned, I have been practicing reading tarot for around 6 years. Let's say 6. 6 is a lovely number. Very balanced, very juicy. So during all these years, I basically tried for myself what it's like to read tarot when you are both in a neutral and very calm and zen state, and when you're in a very altered state. Now, would I tell you that you cannot read tarot when you're in an altered emotional state? No, I would not tell you that. I mean, I'm making this entire video to help you out, to help you go around it. So I've come to realize for myself that it is actually quite beneficial for me to grab a tarot deck and actually use my cards to support me. And the cards, actually did help me quite a few times in those moments. So just a quick disclaimer before I continue. As I already suggested, this is my personal experience. This is not some sort of a dogma. I'm not gonna try to tell you that this is the right way and this is how you should or have to do it, because if you have been following me for a while, you know that is not my style. I'm simply going to tell you about my experience, hoping to inspire you or help someone who might be struggling with that and might want some help in that area. So with that being said, I have tried to organize myself and I have written down a few points about how to go about reading tarot in emotionally altered state. I seriously thought I could just hold this mug in my hand and actually drink the tea while I'm speaking, but this damn mug is beautiful, but it's so heavy. So I'm just gonna put it down, okay? And I'm just going to be using my hands in this video. So let's proceed. So I organized my ideas and came up with a few points that might help you go about your tarot reading when you're in emotionally altered state. Now I have to underline the part going about your tarot reading because it's all about how you approach it. I really need to stress it in case some very tarot beginners watching, because tarot is a tool. And it completely depends on you and your approach towards it, how it actually works for you and how the experience turns out. With that being said, let's go with the point number 1. So the point number 1, and I'm sorry for what I'm about to say because it might be a little bit cliche, but I could not possibly skip that one. I am sorry. I apologize in advance. And the point being, try to ground yourself. Now you might say, yeah, of course, that's easier said than done, because when I'm in an emotionally altered state, obviously I have problems with grounding. And don't worry, I totally get you. I mean, I'm a water sign. I live my emotions to the fullest, the good ones and the bad ones, or the easy ones and the more difficult ones, whatever you want to call them. But what I have come to realize in my years of practice is that even the intention of trying to ground yourself can make a difference. Sometimes it's a very subtle difference, but it still can make a little bit of a difference. So it is always worth a try. And this is literally why I said try to ground yourself. If it doesn't work entirely, like 100%, don't worry, do not despair, it's totally fine, you are human, okay? And I believe everyone experiences the same thing. But even if you just sit down, take a few breaths and try to drop into your body, it can really help you a little bit, because you are kind of tuning yourself into that, okay, I'm gonna do something for my mental health right now, I'm going to do something to try to chill, basically. So we took a few breaths, we tried to ground, we set an intention, and what now? So before we grab a tarot deck, I would like to suggest one more point regarding sort of grounding, calming situation, and this one is actually going to be very, very optional. I mean, all of these points are optional, obviously you don't have to do any of this, but this one is extremely optional. Why? Because I just quickly want to suggest trying to make some sort of calm environment for yourself. But why am I saying that this is extremely optional? Because it depends heavily on where you currently are. So for example, if you are at home, I'm going to assume that you're at home, okay? I cannot go over every other possible situation, so you will have to try to look at it from your point of view and see what you can do. But let's assume you're at home. So for example, if you have some sort of a candle, like your favorite candle, light that candle, or if you have your favorite incense, light the incense. Now if you can't burn things in your apartment and your house, completely understandable, don't do it. Just try to either find a place where you can feel chill, so you go to your bedroom and I don't know, just sit on your favorite pillow or take your favorite plushie or grab your favorite crystal, something, just to have something nearby that might also help you induce that state of calmness, Again, not expecting that to calm you down 100%, but it can help a little bit, and a little help is better than no help. So with that being said, I'm just going to quickly have a sip of my tea. And now let's go to actual tarot talk. So the point number 3 is actually picking up your deck. Now, I want to talk a little bit in this particular point about choosing a deck. So let's assume that you are a tarot reader, tarot collector, and you have several decks. So if that is you, I'm going to suggest you pick a deck that somehow makes you feel comfortable. So maybe some deck that doesn't have so confronting images. I like to think of tarot decks as decks with specific personalities. I don't know if you get me. If you have the similar experience, let me know down below. But in my experience, every tarot and oracle deck has its own experience. So what you want to do is to grab a deck that somehow feels comforting for you. The very important thing being that it should be comforting for you, because I'm not going to give you a title of the deck here and tell you that deck is very good for comforting readings, because that differs so much and I can tell you so much. For me, some deck that I might consider comforting or a hugging deck or hug deck might be the complete opposite for you. So go with your intuition, pick a deck that feels comforting for you. If you are a tarot beginner and maybe you have just one tarot deck, just one, some classic, let's say Rider-Waite-Smith, because it's most people's choice usually. So let's say you only have that deck, you might be asking yourself now, well, what do I do now? I mean, I only have one deck, and what if it's not comforting? Do not worry. If you have just one deck and you're getting to know that deck, etc., just grab that deck, and this might be actually an opportunity for two of you to bond. So don't worry too much about it. And by the way, you do not need a huge tarot collection, okay? Just wanted to say that. But a lot of people do have tarot collections, so I thought about still mentioning this point. Okay, so you picked your deck. Now what? Now is the very and probably the most important part, and it is choosing the right question. And this is where I want to go a little deeper, because choosing the right question isn't just about choosing the right words, even though, yes, that is very important, and I'm gonna give you some example in just a minute. But choosing the right question in these types of situations also means that you really need to set a mindset and stick to that mindset. Now, what do I mean by that? For example, if you are a predictive reader, so if you use tarot cards to predict future and like a general fortune telling, right now I'm going to strongly suggest, now again, you don't have to take my advice on this, but I strongly suggest that in this particular scenario, when you are feeling anxious, overwhelmed, angry, sad, etc., I strongly suggest you turn that mindset off. So no predictions right now. You don't want to know what's gonna happen, okay? You can check it out later if you want, not right now. It is not good for you right now when you are turmoiled, okay? What you want to do instead is focus on a advice point of view, kind of a advice side of tarot. The ability of tarot to give you support, advice, and eventually some comfort. So with that in mind, let's look at some examples of questions that you might ask tarot in this situation. So for example, you could ask, what could help me calm down right now? Similarly, you can ask, what can empower me in this situation? Then a very good one that I personally really love to ask, what energy has my back right now? This is especially good because sometimes you really feel so alone. I sometimes do in that context, in that situation. And the truth is you're never really alone. So asking the deck what energy has your back can be a really nice way of just feeling like you are not alone, because I promise you're not. Another example, how can I protect my peace in this moment? Also a very, very good question. This one is actually a very practical one. It can give you a practical advice on what to actually do in real life to somehow protect your emotions and somehow eventually being able to get out of that turmoiled state. Another very good question example, what is something positive about this situation that I'm currently not seeing? So this of course depends on the situation. Each and every one of these questions depend on your situation. This is why I suggest you tailor it depending on what your current situation is. But that can be a very good one when you're feeling like there is just no way out and everything is just bad and wrong, because chances are there is some sort of way out and maybe not everything is so bad and wrong, right? And tarot can help you see that. These were just a few examples of questions that you can ask tarot in that situation, in that context, but still I'm just going to repeat it because it's super important. Keep the mindset on seeking advice from the cards and not the prediction. Your mind can sometimes slip into that territory, and I know that my mind does that, and it's so annoying because I never even use tarot for predictions, like ever. And yet when I'm anxious or something and I do a reading for myself, sometimes my mind tends to go to that place like, this is gonna happen, and then I literally have to remind myself that I do not approach tarot in this way. So yeah, and it's really helpful to literally tell myself like, hey, what are you talking about? You do not read tarot this way. And you can totally tell that to yourself, because tarot again is a tool and how you approach it defines your experience with it. So you have your question in mind and you start shuffling a deck. Now, another point comes in shuffling. And no, I'm not going to tell you how to shuffle because that doesn't really matter in my opinion. But what I do suggest, and what really proved to be super helpful for me, is the actual time that I'm shuffling the deck. So what do I mean by that? In this type of situations where I'm feeling like super anxious, or I'm sad, or I'm fearful, or altered emotional state, I really like to shuffle for a longer period of time. And why would I suggest that? Well, for several reasons really. For example, the very first reason being that for me, shuffling the cards, shuffling any deck of cards is so therapeutic. Like, I just love doing that. Like the actual tactile experience of holding the deck and shuffling the cards and actually, hearing the shuffling ASMR, whatever, and having my hands just shuffling the deck, it just feels so good to me. And I might be weird or whatever, but I have heard that there are people who also feel that way, like especially people who read tarot for a long time. They find it like so calming, the actual act of shuffling the deck. So this is why I really want to suggest, if you are just starting out or if you're reading tarot for a long time but you haven't really thought about that one, when you're feeling altered in your emotional state, try shuffling deck for longer. focus on your question and just shuffle your deck while you're trying to just breathe and somehow chill out. And you will see that again, it might have a little impact on your emotional state, but with the other steps, all those little impacts are kind of like building up on each other, and they might really end up affecting your emotional state. So yeah, definitely very important point that I really encourage you to try. Shuffle for longer. So you shuffled your deck for long enough, you feel like you are ready to pick a card or cards. And I get to the point number 5, I believe. I'm not sure. I think we are on the point number 5. So how many cards do you pull? It is completely up to you, obviously, as anything and everything, but I would suggest you pull just 1 card or maybe max 2 or 3 cards. Do not go for a very huge, elaborate, complicated, analytical spreads, please. Why? Because it can overwhelm you, it can get your mind wandering through so many different places. It can literally end up being more stressful than therapeutic, or at least in my experience. What I do instead is pulling just 1 card or 2 or 3, I think max 3 cards, because 3 cards spreads are kinda handy, but 1 or 2 cards should be more than enough, I believe, so your mind doesn't get too overwhelmed. With that being said, we are getting to the point number 6, which is you pulled your card and guess what? The thing you didn't want to happen just happened. You pulled some sort of a terrifying, scary, terrible looking card, such as, I'm just gonna go with the classic, the Tower. Let's say you pull the Tower. Now you might be thinking, well, why on earth would I do that? I mean, now everything's just gonna be bad, like terrible things are gonna happen, things are gonna get destroyed, and I'm just gonna be completely shattered, blah blah blah. Okay, now I'm just gonna tell you, take a breath and remember the point, I don't know which one it was. Are we reading the tarot in a predictive way right now? No, we are not. So, are the bad things gonna happen? No, they are not. Nothing bad is gonna happen, nothing bad is happening, okay? The Tower is just a card. It's just a card, okay, first of all. Now with that mindset, this is why I said that it is kind of tricky sometimes not to slip into the predictive nature of cards, because yeah, the Tower can do that sometimes. It can literally make your mind go, oh my gosh, terrible, catastrophic things are gonna happen. No, they're not. You're good. We're good. You're good. So we got a Tower, and now what? Now I'm going to give you a tip that I use myself pretty often, and I find it super helpful. Okay, the camera overheated, and I'm not quite sure what was the last thing I said, so I think I'm just gonna pick it up from, say you pull the Tower. So I'm going to give you a tip that really helped me throughout the years, and I'm actually planning on making a video speaking a little bit more about the difficult cards, like negative cards in tarot, and how to approach them without getting hurt or whatever. So let's say you pull a Tower. Now, what I tend to do is look at the card as yourself, so it's not the card happening to you, but you are the card happening to the world. So what do I mean by that? I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but what do I mean? In the case of pulling the Tower, and let's say your question was, what is something positive I'm not seeing about this situation? So, what would the Tower mean, or how would I look at the Tower in that scenario? So I would say that I still have the ability to shatter things down if I'm not okay or content with it. I can shake things up, I can change things, I can literally burn things to the ground if I really wanted to, because that's all in my willpower, and I forgot that I have that power, right? So that's something empowering, that's something that, you know, that I would take from the Tower message in that scenario. So that would be one example, and I'm not really going to be giving you too many examples in this video, because again, I'm planning on speaking a little bit more about this topic, so stay tuned and maybe subscribe to the channel, and I'm hoping to see you again. But back to this topic. So this is one way how I would approach this kind of reading. So really try to seek advice and not the prediction, and try to switch how you look at that card and do not go all crazy with it. Not sure how to say that, but I think you're getting the picture. I think you know what I mean. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap this up here by saying that after you have pulled your card or cards, I suggest you sit down with it a little bit, maybe reflect upon the reading, or maybe journal about it, whatever you feel like doing. And also extend gratitude towards the fact that you actually have a tool that can somehow support you in this situation. And yeah, just enjoy the fact that you could shuffle your deck and have a little conversation with your tarot deck or your oracle deck. I think I forgot to say that you can 100% do this with an oracle deck as well. With that being said, and by the way, I'm just petting my cat over here because of course he's here, he's always here. Even though you don't always see him, he's literally always here. In every single video, he's here. Why am I telling you this? I don't know, because I have a tendency to start rumble, so I will not. And I will just say I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if this is something that you find helpful, or if you have some other technique or some other tip that might help other people in approaching this topic. And yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about more tarot related topics on the channel, so I'm hoping to see you again. And until next time, stay kind and I'll see you. Bye bye!